The old Blackwood farm had been abandoned for nearly a century, nestled deep in a forgotten valley in the Scottish Highlands. Its stone walls were crumbling, its fields overgrown, and its history whispered in hushed tones by the few remaining locals. Stories of misfortune, strange lights, and an inexplicable low hum that sometimes permeated the very air around the property. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a folklorist specializing in liminal spaces and forgotten rituals, saw not decay but a treasure trove. She purchased the farm sight unseen, drawn by the persistent local legends of a cursed bell that was said to ring on its own, always before a tragedy. Her academic mind, however, sought rational explanations, geological anomalies, prevailing winds, perhaps even a forgotten natural gas vent. Her first few weeks were exhilarating. The isolation was profound. Broken only by the bleating of distant sheep and the cries of raptors, she meticulously documented the farm, finding traces of ancient standing stones on the property and curious, almost geometric patterns etched into some of the older barn timbers. The bell itself was a peculiar object, not a conventional church bell, but a roughly cast bronze cylinder, about 2 feet tall with no visible clapper. It was half buried in the overgrown courtyard, fused to the earth by generations of rust and soil. It looked more like a strange, ancient monument than an instrument of sound. Eleanor set up her research equipment, seismic sensors, sound recorders, even a Geiger counter, all to debunk the superstitious tales. For days, nothing. Just the sounds of the wind and her own heartbeat. Then, one evening as a thick, oppressive fog rolled in from the surrounding hills, she heard it. A deep, resonant thrum. Not a chime, not a clang, but a low, vibrating hum that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath her feet. It was too low to be a natural sound, too steady to be the wind. It was the bell. Eleanor rushed outside, her flashlight beam cutting through the swirling mist. The bronze cylinder was still there, unmoving, yet the thrum was undeniably coming from it. She placed her hand on its cold, metallic surface. She felt the vibration, subtle, yet powerful, like a giant, unseen heart beating within the earth. Her scientific instruments, however, showed nothing. The seismic sensors registered only the normal ground vibrations. The sound recorders picked up only the fog and her own rapid breathing. The Geiger counter was silent. Yet the thrum persisted, a sound heard only by her, felt only by her. The next morning, the fog had lifted, and the thrum was gone. Eleanor checked the local news online, half expecting to hear of some minor local incident. Instead, the headline chilled her to the bone. Massive landslide cuts off. Glencoe Pass, several missing. Glencoe Pass was over 50 miles away, a major route. A tragedy, as the local legends had foretold. Eleanor dismissed it as a coincidence. A large landslide was an entirely natural event, and the thrum was surely a product of her isolated environment and overactive imagination, but the thrums began to recur. Always on nights of particularly heavy fog or unusual atmospheric pressure, always unheard by her equipment yet undeniably felt by her. And always, within 24 hours, a report would emerge from some distant, unrelated part of the Highlands, a sudden, inexplicable rockfall that isolated a remote village. A small, local fishing boat lost at sea in calm waters. A hiker vanishing without a trace on a clear day. Eleanor grew gaunt. Sleep became a battle against the looming dread of the next thrum. She started to notice other things. The geometric patterns on the barn timbers, she realized, weren't just decorative. They were symbols. Ancient and unsettlingly familiar from obscure. Texts on forgotten cults she'd once dismissed as fringe. And the hum, when it came, felt less like a sound and more like a presence. A slow, patient awakening. One night, the fog was thicker than ever before. It pressed against the windows, a solid, gray wall. The thrum began. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just a low vibration. It was deeper, slower, almost like a gargantuan intake of breath. And it was accompanied by something else, a faint, almost imperceptible scrape sound, like something vast and heavy being dragged across stone, far beneath the earth. Eleanor stumbled out into the courtyard, a flashlight shaking in her hand. The bell-like cylinder was vibrating violently, shimmering with an unseen energy. As she watched, a cracked, thin hairline appeared on its ancient surface. Then another, and another, spreading like a spiderweb. And as the cracks propagated, a low, guttural groan emanated from the bell, a sound that was not sound, but pure primordial agony. It wasn't the bell ringing, it was the bell breaking. And as it broke, Something was trying to escape from within it, or perhaps from beneath it. Through the intensifying groan, Eleanor finally understood. The bell wasn't causing the tragedies. It wasn't a warning. It was a seal. And the thrum was not its sound, but the sound of whatever it was holding back, patiently, anciently trying to break free. The next morning, the fog had dispersed, revealing a perfectly clear, unsettlingly beautiful day. Eleanor found the bronze bell-like object shattered into 1,000 fragments, scattered across the courtyard. Beneath where it had stood, a newly opened fissure, black and impossibly deep, snaked its way into the earth. The local news that day reported nothing unusual. The highland skies were clear, the roads open, the people going about their lives. The air, however, felt lighter to Eleanor. Too light. The constant, subtle pressure, the oppressive stillness that had permeated the valley for so long, was gone. But she knew it wasn't gone because the threat had passed. It was gone because the seal had broken. And whatever ancient, unknowable thing the bell had imprisoned for centuries, whatever it was that caused misfortune and disappeared people, was now truly, utterly free, and it was no longer bound to the bell or its warnings. It was simply loose. Eleanor packed her bags that day, leaving Blackwood Farm and its shattered secrets behind. She never looked back. But sometimes, when the wind howled a certain way, or when an unseasonal fog rolled in, she could almost hear, in the very silence, the faint, deep thrum of something vast and terrible, stretching its limbs far beyond the reach of any bell.